Hello everyone, welcome to episode 6 of our Monorepo series with Pants Build, or Pants for short. In the last video, we covered how to build a Docker image with Pants, and we also covered how to push the Docker image to a Docker Hub registry with Pants. We also built the same Docker image and pushed to a Google Cloud registry with Pants. And today we'll cover a few things. Two main things we'll cover. We'll cover how to build a wheel and how to distribute that wheel using Pypi and also using the container registry from Google Cloud. And let's jump into it. So I have my code base here. I'll just open source. And last video we built the Docker image and we specified the registry and we push to that registry, right? Like I said, in this video we'll be building a wheel and we'll push to Pypi registry. If you don't know what a wheel is essentially a way in Python where when you write a piece of code and you want that code to be shareable amongst other teams, you can bundle that code together and push it to an artifact, an artifactory, or any registry, right? So you have like JFrog Artifactory, you have Google Artifactory, GitLab also has an Artifactory. Artifactory is just where you store those libraries that you have. So you can build your Python code as a library, and then you can store it inside Pypi, and every time you do pip install, you can directly install that from Pypi. So we're going to be building that today. I'll also publish that to Pypi and also do the same thing to Google Cloud. So first things first is we need to build a simple library. So what I'll do here is I'll build a simple library here, and so I'll just create a new folder. Let's just assume that in our Monorepo series we have a team that works on a library, and they want that library to be shared as open source outside their team, or they want it to be shared as an open source library. So I'll just say I'm trying to create a calculator library, and inside this calculator library, what I'll do is I'll create a folder called calculator.py. Again, this is just a simple library, and I'll call this, I'll define a function that takes in two integers, integer x and integer y. I've been working in a different language, so that's why I still make some of all these weird mistakes. And this will return to me an integer. So I can just say return x plus y. So this is a simple calculation, and all it does is takes in an input x and an input y, and then does calculation on this input. Pretty straightforward. So let's say that now we want to distribute this code to other teams. So we have to build a wheel file out of this code. You can have multiple, series of code that you bundle together, but you want to build a wheel file out of this, right? Using Pants. Usually you would use like setup.py, or you use like a pyproject.toml file to build this. So in Pants, you also use the same idea. Let's go to the documentation and see how this is done in the documentation. So I'll just close that and go to the documentation. Okay, so I'm in the Pants documentation, and I'll go to Python overview, and then I'll go to building distribution here. And if I go here, I'll see that there are two ways to actually do this. I could use the legacy way, which is somewhere at the bottom here, setup tools. That's where you have a setup.py file, and then you build your wheel from there, right? Or I could use a modern way where I define a pyproject.toml, and based on that pyproject.toml, Pant knows how to build that wheel and how to publish that wheel. So I prefer using this. I think it's more modern, and again it gives like more option to define the content of the project. So we use this, and we'll then define the pyproject.toml as a resource. You see, you define it as a resource here. And then you explain that it's a dependency, that this distribution wheel needs that as a dependency. And then you can add all of this, the name, the version. This is pretty much optional, the content in here. Pants is able to pull those content from your pyproject.toml, and I'll show that shortly. Also, you just say you don't want to use setup.py. So let's go back to the VS Code, and I'll show how to do that. So back to VS Code, we'll just create a file here, and I'll call this pyproject.toml. I'll just use one that I created already, and I'll explain what the file is. So this build system explains how to build the Python wheel. So in this case, I'm still using setup tools. This just explains how to build a Python wheel, the things I need to build a Python wheel. And then this is the name. So we can give this pants build wheel. That's just the name of the wheel eventually when it gets built. And then this is the version. So I can change this to 1. This is a description of the project. And then this explains that this is a README. So we'll create a README. The README will contain more detailed information about the project. So, you know, how to install the wheel and stuff. That's usually where you put all this information. And this just tells you the version of Python you want to work with, keywords, the author, maintainers, some classifiers, and then you could put some links here. This is just fake links for explanation purposes. So I'll drag this one down. So create a README. Let's create a README, just a simple README. So I'll call this readme.md. And inside my README, I'll just type hello world. Building wheels with pants build. So now we have the README, we have the pyproject.toml, and we have the library we want to publish. The next thing we'll do is we need to inform pants that we now have a new source file, a new source code, which is pretty much all of this that I wrote. So the way to do that, like I showed in previous videos, is to say pants tailor everything. So what pants will do is, because pants automatically reads your code base and understand your dependencies, it's going to create a build file, and that is this build file that we have. Something similar to this. It's going to create this build file that contain information on how to build that portion of code. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so we see two things being added. We see a shell source added, and then we'll see a Python source added. So let's go to the build. So a shell source was added to the root, and then we see the Python build added here. So actually we don't need this shell source. We can actually delete this. Okay, we don't need that for now. We can delete this. The reason that was created was because this entire code base is actually our source code, and pants, because of this shell script, pants feels like, yeah, we do need that to run, but for now we don't need that, so that's why I deleted that. So we have the build here, and this is great. This tells us that there is a Python source, so automatically any Python file, it sees it as a source. Yeah. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go back to the documentation and see how this was done. So I'm back to the documentation, and I see they specify a resource here. So as a matter of fact, I'll just copy everything here. Okay. Well, much easier. And then go back to my VS Code and then paste. So they specify resource pyproject.toml, which I created here. And then they specify that this is a dependency. Then they specify the name. So actually you don't need this because we already specified it here in toml. Okay. So this name tells you that this is the Python wheel. So we can call this calculator wheel. So this tells you that this is the, sorry, not the Python wheel. This tells you that this is the pant target. So essentially, if I want to build just this portion, I can specify the full directory path, and then I can say this pant target. And I'll show that shortly. And this tells me that pant should also include a toml file inside the build environment, because pant build environment is also always isolated. So pant will copy everything that it needs into that build environment, everything that your code depends on, copy it into there, and then pant will be able to build it from there. So also just remove this guy. It's not required. Because we're using pyproject, pant will pull everything from pyproject. Yeah. And then this says don't use setup dot, don't generate a setup dot py file. The next thing we need is we specify this readme in our project pyproject.toml. So we also need to let pant know that that's a dependency, right? So the way we do that is the same thing we did here. So we say that's a resource, and we'll call that our readme target, and then we'll specify the file name. Readme md, then I can pretty much say this is also a dependency from this specific folder location I am. There is a target called readme. So it's going to copy the readme into this environment, into the isolated box environment. And then from there, it's going to pretty much build the wheel, because now it's in this isolated box environment. It has all the things that it needs to build the wheel. Okay, so I'll just clear this. Good. So the next thing we do need is to set up our Pypi registry, and I'll show how to do that shortly. So let's let pant know the repositories that we'll be pushing this to. Okay. And the repository we're pushing this to is upload.py.org.legacy. And this repository is just an open source repository where you see different libraries being pushed, Python libraries live there. And I'll show how to set up that. I'll also show how to log in into that. So put that comma here. I'll show how to set up that, show how to log in into that. Okay. So let's go and set up Pypi registry. We'll look at the documentation how to do that, and then we'll jump into Pypi registry. Somewhere in publish. So go to publish, and then once you go to publish, you'll see that this is how you set up the registry. The most simple way is just to put the folder registry name, and then you set some environment variables like the twin username and the twin password. You set that before you run pant, so something like this, and then you can run pant publish. Okay. So let's go to the Pypi registry or repository, and I'll show how to publish a wheel to the Pypi repository. Okay, so I do have it here. I'll just log in, and this requires two-factor authentication. If you don't have an account, you can always create an account. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so I'll just type out the code. Great. So I can come to my user account here and then go to project. For us to be able to push to the Pypi registry, we need to be able to authenticate with the Pypi registry. And the way to do that is you need a token. So like the same way I was able to log in here with a username and a password into two-factor authentication. Yeah, for your application to be able to push, you do need a token. And a token is just a long length secret that you use to be able to authenticate with Pypi, and your CI/CD or application can be able to push or pull information, just depending. So go to publishing and we'll go to account settings. We'll scroll down to account settings. So you see a token I created before. So let's create a new one. So I'll create a new token and then I'll call this pants wheel. And then I specify the entire project and create. So for security reasons, this token will only show once. So ensure that you copy this token and then you store it in a place that is secured. And if you're using like a .py RC, you could use that, but I currently don't use that. So we just copy this token. Great, copy. And we'll store the token somewhere that we can, use this. So I'll go back to my code. I do have a folder here called .secrets, and I'll just wipe out all of this. Then I'll store the token here. Okay. Good. So the username, based on the documentation, you see the username is __ token __. And then the token, this is the token, right? Great. So now we have all of this set up. Let's come and double check. It's called calculator wheel. Great. And we have our TOML file. Great. So that's good. So let's try to build the wheel file first. So to build a wheel, we have different ways. If I just want to build this specific calculator wheel, the way I'll do that is pants, and then I'll specify, say, pants package. Then I'll specify the full path, source, and that's in the Python folder, and that's in calculator. And then I can say the name of this target, right? So this will build a wheel for this specific target. Another way to build this is just to say build every single thing, and that will look at the cache and see what has changed, and only rebuild what has changed. So that's also a good way to handle, that's one of the benefits of pants. Yeah, so I'll just run this for now. Okay, so I noticed a folder being created here. And if you look at that folder, you see the name called pants build wheel, pants build wheel tar. And these are just the wheel files that you can distribute to any downstream users of your library. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to push this to the Pypi registry. And the way to do that is we need to set this entire content as our environment variable, and Pant will be able to know that, okay, well, twin username was set and the twin password was set, and then you can now pull that and use that to build and publish our wheel. So it's going to publish to this repository, and based on the token name, it's going to know how to authenticate with that. And also it's going to use this name. So this pyproject.toml is what you will see that will show on the Pypi registry. So let's publish this to our artifactory. Okay, so I'll just delete this That's the wheel I created before. And let's give this a different name just so it doesn't conflict with like previous project that I have. So I'll just say pants wheel, and this is version 0.0.0. And first of all, I need to set this in the terminal session. So I need to export this environment variable in this terminal session. So if I do echo and I do so if I say echo this value, so you will see that it's been set in the terminal session. So I do the same thing too for this. Then I just clear. This will ensure that Pants is able to authenticate with Pypi and then push our wheel to the Pypi registry. Okay. So now I can do Pants package everything, or I can specify what I want to package, to be precise. For simplicity, I'll just specify what I want to package. Say calculator, and then I'll specify the name of this target, which is this. So that packaged it, and I can say publish the same target. So say it's uploading, and great. So it's able to upload to this target. So let's go look at it and see how it looks like. So I'll just refresh the screen. So if I come to the wheel, view. So we see the version that was specified. We see the name that was specified. We see the content of our Readme, which is awesome. We see like the home page that was specified, project links, and we see just the metadata that was specified, right? So this is how you push to a Pypi registry. Let me bump up the version one by one and kind of show this again. So go back to our VS Code and bump up this version to 2. And let's add some stuff to our README. Okay, the best calculator in the whole world. And let's publish this. So I can do pants publish will. I don't need to always package. I can just do publish, and then it's going to package it and push it. Great. So let's go back to our Pypi registry, and I'll just refresh this. Great. So we see that now we have a newer version 2, and we can see the content here. Okay. So if you want to go to release history, you can see like all the release history here. So this is how you publish to a Pypi registry using pants. So the video is getting really long, and we'll end it here. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.